need to just rush by this, but to realize that he has brothers, lots of brothers, and not one of them is siding with him. He's got brothers that are all saying, yes, let's get him out of the picture. They not only didn't want to be around him, they didn't want anyone around him. They put him there in this pit, but as the Lord would have, these people come by that are willing to say, no, we'll take him as a slave. And they're like, maybe that's better. And so they take his coat of many colors that the father had given him, and they take that and they're going to make it look like some animal got it. Maybe put blood on it and take it to the father and say, this is his coat, isn't it? And then that deception that they can get rid of this brother. But to think what that must have felt like being in this pit and being like, man, I just showed up. Y'all have all been out here. I've just now shown up. And now y'all put me in this pit and you're going to sell me. And they see where those brothers take money for his life. It's worse than just, let's kill him. Let's kill him. No, you know what? We can make money off of him. Let's get rid of him, but we prosper. It's just the ultimate disregard for another life. And yet the teaching today is going to be, how do we endure through the suffering in the way that is left for us? We are studying a chronological Bible, and so it starts with creation. We've looked at that, and now we're at the patriarchs. And God comes to Abraham and says, I'm going to make you this people, and you're going to be different. I'm going to have different rules for you. I'm going to have even dietary laws for you that are different. So when the world looks at you, when the other nations look at you, they see that you are different. I'm going to call you out. And that begins with Abraham, Isaac, and now we're at Jacob. So Jacob, his name is changed to Israel. So these are the 12 tribes of Israel, and Joseph is the youngest child that's been born at this time. Benjamin is going to be born later, but Joseph is the youngest at this point of the story. And so we have these tribes that God is going to show himself strong, and it is your heritage. This is the story this is your story. We sing, this is our story, this is our song, this is my story, this is my song. And we're praising the Lord, but we're seeing where from the very, very beginning, he has these stories that are pulsing with we need a Savior. And it is setting the stage for Jesus to come. But in these stories, we are going to see foreshadowings of Jesus. So the people would understand, oh, this is like Joseph. This is how God dealt with him. This is how God could be dealing with me. So we're going to look today at Joseph, his heartache, his endurance, and the prosperity that came to him through that endurance. And so if you will, I want you to just turn to page 54 in your chronological Bible. If you don't have your chronological Bible, I want you to turn to Genesis 40, because we're going to get a little bit of running start. We're going to study Genesis 41. We're going to start with Genesis 40, which is on page 54 on the left-hand column. And we're going to start with 14. Genesis 40, 14. Okay, so the story fast forwards to where Joseph is picked up by these people in the pit. They take the money, they take him to Egypt, and he's bought and he's traded there. So now he is in Egypt. And that's how, we know that as the story goes, that's how all the Israelites are going to end up in Egypt needing a deliverer. That's when they're going to cross the Red Sea. It's because of Joseph being sold there that the Israelites end up in Egypt. So as they are there, he's in Potiphar's house, this man who's high up in the government, and he gets the woman who is his wife accuses him, sees him, says he's a really nice looking guy, and so she comes on to him and he flees and she takes his cloak. I mean, we're going to talk about this later, but isn't it something, don't you know, he's like, man, my cloak keeps getting taken away from me, and it's not even something I'm doing. It's like, I'm doing what's right. These people keep taking my cloak. Maybe I shouldn't be. let's just not wear a cloak anymore, like as if that's the problem. But isn't that how we deal with things sometimes? The same thing's happening, and instead of being able to say, this is the Lord in my story, we're like, man, I just need to quit doing whatever this is, even though it is a good thing. So we see that he has to be put in prison again. So where does he end up? In a pit again. He is in another pit. The word, it means cistern or pit or prison, even empty well. That's the word that's being used here. It's the very same word that he was put into. It may have looked different, but it's the same concept. It is away from others and without a way of escape. He's in this pit again. And I know, as sure as I'm here, and this is my story, that sometimes we end up in the same pit again. And it's like, how does this keep happening? What is it that's keeping us from being able to break free from these things? When we've done all the things that we know, at times, to break free from that. And so the submission today is that the Lord is in this story as well. It's in the waiting, and it is accomplishing things that could not be accomplished another way. But that we would continue to endure. We would continue, if you will, if you have a bow and you have an arrow, that you would, every day in this waiting, that you would be able to pull that bow again and say, no, I've still got the string. I'm not just going to sit down and say, you know what, I'm through with this. But the endurance to be able to say, no, a day is coming. The Lord has called me to be faithful today, and he will provide the faithfulness for today. Today we endure because the Lord is here. And he is here wherever we are. And for Joseph, he is in this pit. So he says, okay, so he's in the pit with these other two men, and they have dreams. Well, you know, once again, Joseph could say, I'm not going to interpret these dreams, because the last time I did that, that's how I got put in this first pit. So now here I am in the second pit, and now you're saying interpret this dream. I mean, there's all kinds of trauma here that you would just say, no, y'all are on your own. I don't know what it is. I'm not even going to ask the Lord, because I'm afraid he's going to tell me. But he does, instead of saying that, he says, no, the Lord will interpret this for you. It is not mine, it is the Lord's. He is keeping that bow taut, if you will. He is keeping it to where it's like, no, I'm still going to follow God in this place. I'm still going to do the next right thing. And I'm going to believe that there is a God who is sovereign even over these experiences. And it might just be Satan trying to whittle me down to where I won't do these things. Instead, we will rise. We will rise with the strength of the Lord and say, Holy Spirit, will you come and meet your presence and give me power to live faithfully for this day? And so we don't know any of those prayers from prison, but we do know that when he interprets these dreams, to one of them he says, you're gonna die. You're gonna be impaled, and it's gonna be really soon, like tomorrow. And the other guy, he says, you're gonna be restored to the cupbearer. He says, you're gonna be restored, the cupbearer to the king. You're going to be restored. And he said, and when you get there, would you remember me? Verse 41. And please remember me and do me a favor when things go well for you. Mention me. When I was reading this, I couldn't help but think, I don't know that it's necessarily in the Bible for this purpose, but it came to me so strong that the cupbearer comes out and he doesn't remember him because the adversity's gone. He's restored. Life is good. He goes on his way. But we are cupbearers. We are the ones that Christ has said, this is my cup of suffering. Will you take it? And will you remember me? Or do we just take it and we go on with our lives and we don't mention him? We become taken by the current of our world. And when we reflect on what the Lord has done, it will give us strength. Because he has said, I have left you an example of how to suffer. And the suffering is that we entrust a faithful God who judges rightly. We entrust him that he is not unjust. He is just not on our timetable. He's not doing what we tell him to do. That we are the sheep and he is the shepherd, and we want to live to bless his name and to say the Lord gives and the Lord takes away. Blessed be the name of the Lord today. God was working in Joseph's story. He was working in Jesus' story. when he had to suffer, and he is working in our story today. He is working in those places where we would, if we could, we would wiggle out of this. We would be free to have what we want in the way that we want it, and it would go well. And yet God is saying, in this place, I've left you this example. That's what these scriptures are for. And so he wants us to remember him. Remember his suffering. Remember that Jesus came and gave his life, stayed in a place, and he endured because of the joy set before him, not because he had the joy right then. There was a joy set before him. There was a joy set before Joseph. There is a joy set before you and me. That this is not the end of life. Hopefully we get to see the things resolve in this life. But even if we don't, that there is great explosion of joy and peace and everything we long for that awaits us because of the suffering of Jesus. And in that way that we would say, you've called me to suffer with you. I believe that this is what Paul was saying when he says that I may know him and the power of his resurrection and the fellowship of his sufferings. That we suffer knowing that Christ has suffered for us. He is with us. He was with Joseph. He was with Jesus. He was Jesus. He is Jesus. And he is with us. That is how we will endure. We trust God, but we know that God is with us, giving us the strength to endure. You are the cupbearer. Will you remember him? When he says, remember me, will you remember me? I've told this before, but when one of my kids went off to college, I was fixing her room. She had more t-shirts than I thought anyone could ever wear, and it was in this drawer, and so we were pushing them down in there. And I put this little note there, and I, to call home, just to be funny, and put little things around the way. Well, she was going to call home anyway, eventually, because her money was going to run out. Okay? But the idea is, I wasn't worried that if she got that note, all of a sudden it's going to be like, oh, I'm supposed to call home. I hadn't thought of that. That was not my purpose at all. It was that there was something there that would make her remember me. That's what that was. It looked like one thing, but it was really another. And so Christ is saying here, you're the cupbearer. I've done these things for you. I rose again to the occasion. I didn't give up. When people came against me, I stood against them for you. And now I'm asking, will you remember me? Will you take his life and say, yes, I realize what you've done. Review those things, remember them, and mention him to others. That's the goal of all of it. Okay, so here we are, 41. Oh, I want you to look. If you have you don't have to turn here if you don't want to, but in your chronological Bible, it puts right here, it puts right before chapter 30, I'm sorry, right before chapter 41, it puts Genesis 35. And it is important, chronologically, this is when Isaac dies. Okay, so you have Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. Isaac is going to die right here at this point of the story. You have Jacob, who is the father, that's Israel. Jacob is Israel. You have that father that's home thinking that Joseph has died. Okay? But Joseph is in a pit, and life is passing by. We're going to see that he's 30 years old when he comes out of this today, and he was 17 when they put him in that pit. And some of you are thinking the same thing. It's like, you know what? I can't get this back. Things have happened that I can't go back. It's not like Joseph is going to come out of the pit, but Isaac's not going to come back to life. This is his grandfather. He's missing his father. He doesn't know that Benjamin, the one full brother that he has been born. He's missing all of life. And yet we look at this and think, is God unfair? Or is he saying, Joseph, that's not what I had for you. I had something else. And that we would say, Lord, I want your will for my life. But if I live in this lane of trying to keep up with everybody and have everything that everybody has, and that I feel sorry for myself when I don't have those things, we live in a place that is not of the Lord. But to say, my life is yours, Lord. But there's a song that says, I'm yours, Lord, everything I've got, everything I'm not. And isn't that how we feel? It's like, you can have it. I don't know how this is going to go for either of us, right? But that we would say, I want to live the life that you put me here to live. And that's the life where you will find your contentment, your joy. Instead of trying to be all the lives of all the other people and to find our fulfillment in that place. So you have Isaac lived for 180 years. This is Genesis 35:28. And then he breathed his last and died in a ripe old age, joining his ancestors. His sons, Esau and Jacob, buried him. There's some resolution there. Can you imagine Joseph hearing that later? Jacob and Esau were both there when Granddaddy died. That's awesome. I never thought they would ever get along again. All the things, all the stories that he missed. And yet we look and I believe if we talked to him in heaven, he would be like, oh, no, it's fine. It is fine. It is well with my soul. Because I have met the one who suffered for me, who gave to me, that had plans for me, fulfilled those plans through me. Genesis 41. 2 years passed after Pharaoh dreamed, and he was standing, meaning 2 full years after he interpreted that dream for the cupbearer. So he's like, okay, this is my chance. Cupbearer, remember me, okay? And so he leaves, and it's like, don't you know, for 2 days, he's like, this may be it. This may be it. He's going to tell Pharaoh, interpret the dreams. It's a good thing. I'm waiting. And then the day finally comes, it's like, it's not going to happen. 2 years later, and this is what happens. 2 full years later, Pharaoh dreamed that he was standing on the bank of the Nile River. This is a dream. In his dream, he saw 7 fat, healthy cows come out of the river Nile. Cows coming out of the Nile. I could make a joke and say they're in denial, but I'll leave that. And they began grazing in the marsh grass. And then he saw 7 more cows come up behind them from the Nile, same place, the Egyptian Nile. And these were scrawny and thin cows. These cows stood beside the fat cows on the riverbank. And then the scrawny, thin cows ate the 7 healthy fat cows. At this point, Pharaoh woke up. Too much pizza, right? The skinny cows eating the fat cows. There's 7 of them. But he fell asleep again. Pharaoh fell asleep again. And he had a second dream, and this time he saw 7 heads of grain, plump and beautiful, growing on a single stalk. Okay, so the idea is there's one stalk, and it's got these parts of wheat here. Okay, you have these 7 heads of grain, and they're very full. They're very pregnant with this grain. Okay, but then 7 more heads of grain appeared, but these were shriveled and withered by the east wind. And these thin heads of this wheat, they swallowed up the 7 plump, well-formed heads. And then Pharaoh woke up and realized it was a dream. Same thing, okay, same idea. The next morning, Pharaoh was very disturbed by the dreams, so he called for all the magicians and wise men of Egypt. And when Pharaoh told them the dreams, not one of them could tell him what it meant. Finally, the king's chief cupbearer spoke up. Oh, now I remember. Now there was this guy. That's what he's saying. I'm reminded of my failure, he's told Pharaoh. Some time ago, you were angry with the chief baker and me, and you imprisoned us in the palace of the captain of the guard. One night, the chief baker and I each had a dream, and each dream had its own meaning. And there was a young Hebrew man with us in the prison who was a slave of the captain of the guard. And we told him our dreams, and he told us what each of our dreams meant. And I want to remind us here, if Joseph had just laid down and said, no, I'm not gonna use the gifts of God anymore because it's brought me here, then it doesn't go the full length of the story. That he would show up again and say, I will do what you've asked me to do, even though it has not gone well before. When I did what you asked me to do, I'm still gonna do that again. And so that is the key here, because he was willing to interpret this dream, and that is what is propelling the story forward. And he says he told us exactly what the dreams meant. Verse 13, and everything happened just as he predicted. I was restored to my position as a cupbearer, and the chief baker was executed and impaled on a pole. Pharaoh sent for Joseph at once, and he was quickly brought from the prison. This is that same word. And he shaved and changed his clothes. He went in and stood before Pharaoh. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, I had a dream last night, and no one here can tell me what it means, but I've heard that when you hear about a dream, you can interpret it. He says, it is beyond my power to do this, but God can tell you what it means and set you at ease. Once again, you don't hear this. You know what? I told the cupbearer to tell you 2 years ago. We could have made this a little bit faster. You know, I never was with that woman. I mean, all the things that could have been said at this point of like, to try to get to the end of this, to try to explain, it is not like it looks. Instead of all that, he is able to say, see the task at hand that God has for him, and to say, the Lord will do this for you. His faith has remained strong. His bow has remained taut. Okay, so he says here, it's beyond, but I can tell you. So Pharaoh told Joseph the dream, and he tells him about the dream. Verse 21, he says, but afterwards you wouldn't have known it, for they were still as thin and scrawny as before. Okay, so what he's saying is, these skinny cows ate these fat cows, and they were still scrawny. They weren't all of a sudden like bulging, like, oh boy, you just ate a whole cow, emaciated, you know, you've just eaten a whole cow. But it says, no, they were still just as scrawny as before. And then he goes on to explain about the grain, the same thing. And he said, this is what it is, Pharaoh, this is what's happened. Is that right now we are living in abundance. We are in the fat cow era, if you will. This is the time in Egypt when there is just so plenty. Right here by the Nile, we represent, and out of the Nile, out of the Egyptian overflow, we are fat and healthy. But there is coming a time, it's 7 years. And in that time, there's going to be a famine. And that famine is going to be so great that it's going to eat up all that has been, and it's still not going to be enough. It's still going to be scrawny. And so he's saying, this is what the Lord has told you, and he's told you twice to show you it is coming soon. And it will happen, just as the Lord has said, because the Lord will reveal these things. The Lord has revealed these things to you. And so that you know that Pharaoh is able to see that there is this God who's able to do these things. Verse 25, let's skip there. But Joseph responded, both of Pharaoh's dreams mean the same thing. God is telling Pharaoh in advance what he is about to do. The Lord is going to cause this famine. The Lord is going to provide for them in the midst. Verse 28, this will happen just as I have described it, for God has revealed to Pharaoh in advance what he's about to do. Okay, so I want you to go down, if you will. He tells, verse 33, he says, Pharaoh should find an intelligent and wise man and put him in charge of the entire land of Egypt. Then Pharaoh should appoint supervisors over the land and let them collect 1/5 of all the crops. 20% of all the crops have got to go somewhere else during these 7 good years. And then after that, we can provide all the food, and it will be stored away, and there will be food in these cities. That way, there will be enough to eat when the 7 years of famine come to the land of Egypt. Otherwise, this famine will destroy the land. So verse 37, Joseph's suggestions were well received. And so verse 38, Pharaoh asked, can we find anybody else like this man? So obviously filled with the Spirit of God, it's like, you are the man. You are the man right here. And you are the one. So he's waited since he was 17 years old. And nothing really good has come. How many times has he sat there and thought, my brothers haven't even come looking for me? Where's Dad? I wonder if he's alive. I bet Granddaddy's dead. He was, what did you say, 180? You know, he was getting on up in years, right? And what has happened to my life? When I was this son that was so loved. And it is just not played out the way that I would have imagined it. And yet you have the Pharaoh of all of Egypt saying, is there anyone like you? Is there anyone with the Spirit of God in this man? Somehow Joseph has been able to overcome even his grief. He's going to talk about his grief in a little while. He has grief. He has replayed this. He's been forgotten. He's been forsaken. And these scriptures are in here so we find ourselves. All scripture is given so that we can learn these things. And yet we fast forward and we see it's the story of Jesus as well. That Jesus, he's forsaken. And I want us to remember, this is so interesting to me, because in Isaiah, it talks about that Jesus was numbered with the transgressors. Remember that phrase? He was numbered with the transgressors. In other words, they were counting the people on the cross. Okay, there's 1, 2, 3. There's 3 criminals there. He was numbered with those who had done wrong, but he had not done wrong. And it says, and we esteemed him smitten of God. We looked at Jesus, the people that lived in those days, and we would have been those people, and more than likely, and said, you know what? God must not be pleased with you, because look at all the suffering. Jesus, you're not the Son of God. God would not allow you to suffer. That was the whole big deal. That's why you even have the Muslim, that's the biggest bone of contention between the Muslims and Christians now. Jesus can't be God because God wouldn't let Jesus suffer like that. But he was suffering for us. Joseph, we're going to see he's suffering, but it's going to bring food to the land. It's going to bring a partial fulfillment of what God told Abraham, that in you the Gentiles would be blessed. He's in all nations. Goyim is the word. In you, the Jews and the Gentiles will eventually be blessed, because that's going to be through Jesus. But this is the foreshadowing. It is grain, it is food that's going to be provided for the Jew and the Gentile because of the endurance of Joseph, which brings us into the story, and we see the endurance of Jesus. We see the endurance, the perseverance, to where he is saying, it is not because I want to do this. Lord, if there's any way, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, that your will be done. And it pleased the Father because he saw all the people that were going to benefit because of this suffering. And you look at your life. You can name these people. They come to your mind pretty quickly. Who are the people that you've seen suffer that has had an impact on you? A positive impact on you. That you saw them suffer. You saw them be disappointed. You saw them not have what they wanted. You saw them be discouraged. You even saw other people number them with all the people who had done wrong. You may have been that person. It says that Jesus was numbered with the transgressors. We thought he was smitten of God, but he was not. And we are in those positions at times. It's just like, I think we can all say this, is you think you know me and you know me really well, but there's still a whole lot of the story that nobody knows. It's so complicated. Even if you sat down, we're going to tell somebody, they can't stay awake that long. And it's not interesting enough when you talk about the third cousin twice removed that said to the brother that, all the things. But it's like there's a lot that goes on. There's a lot. And we can tell that people sometimes, they don't really, if they said that, they don't really understand what we're thinking. And there are times when we are going to look like we are wrong and we are right. Unfortunately, there are times when we are going to be wrong and we look right. Those are dangerous times. But in this case, Jesus and Joseph have done what is right, and they are suffering for it. And Jesus says, Paul says in the New Testament, it says, when you have suffered, when you've done that for which you've not done wrong, this pleases God. And when we are living for him, we find that pleasure. Lord, I'm going to stay here. I'm going to stay in this position until you move this on. I don't understand it. I wish it were different, but I want you to be honored. So he says to Pharaoh says to him, can we find anybody else that's like this? And so he puts Joseph in charge. So now immediately he has waited and waited and waited and waited, and suddenly it's different. You have the Old Testament. You wait and you wait and you wait and you wait and you wait for this Messiah, and suddenly there was with the angels a host, and they're singing glory to God in heaven. You talk about the favor of God. We look back and we see the favor is all over Joseph. They're saying, you're so highly favored. We're going to put you, even in the prison, we're going to put you here. You can kind of be in charge of the other prisoners. The favor, it talks about the favor, the H-E-S-E-D, has said of God. The favor of God was on him. But I believe if we went to that pit and we said, Joseph, the favor of God is on you. I think if that were me, I'd be like, I'm glad, because if this is the favor of God, I sure don't want to be without the favor of God, because this is tough. The favor of God was on Jesus. The favor of God was on Mary. Highly favored one, right? And then he says, yes, and a sword will pierce your soul. It wasn't exactly my definition of favored. But the favored one is the one who understands God is with them and accomplishing purposes and is for them. And if God is for us, no one can ultimately be against us. But we may have to stand in places where we appear not to be in the popular vote. Don't you know that someone, if this happened, if Joseph is in the pit and he's talking to the other prisoners, and they say, well, how did you get here? Well, my brothers sold me the pit. How many were there? There were 10 of them. Not one of them thought maybe you should live. Not one. Then I think if you were in that pit, if I were there, I think he did something wrong. Because those 10 guys would not have all, there would be somebody that said we shouldn't do this. But that's not the story. It wasn't reconciled. It didn't resolve. And we want so badly to watch life like we watch movies. Give me an hour and a half and let it resolve. But life doesn't do that. And so when we are there, we're going to have to say, Lord, I'm inviting you into this pit, this story, this place where I've been more than once, that I can't figure out what I'm doing wrong. If I am doing something wrong, I want to know that and change it. But if I'm not, I want to bless your name. And I want to say, I am here and you are with me. And you are worthy. Because this evidently is the life you put me in for today. And so for today, I want to live the life that you have for me. Once again, we benefit. He is going to benefit so many people. Jesus' suffering benefited so many people. Our endurance will benefit others. It's part of what encourages us. We want to leave that we were faithful. And how are we going to be faithful? Except that we spend that time with God saying, Lord, I want your faithfulness. I want to remember you. I want to remember you. I want to be like the cupbearer that comes out and says, I want to tell you about this one who's told me things about myself, who has told me things to come, who has shown me, provided for me. And even though it may not look like I'm in a good place, I know my Savior. I know that he lives. He walks with me, he talks with me, and he tells me I'm his own. Yeah. What a friend we have in this one. And we don't want to live our lives. I may be the worst of anyone in here trying to reconcile everything. I want everything. I want everybody to understand everything. And I think if we can just talk long enough, we'll all get along. And I can tell you, it doesn't work like that. But I can't, it's just like, no, one more time, I'm going to try this. And it doesn't go like that. And some things are just going to have to be. So this is, okay, so we're at the end here. Okay, so he puts him in charge. Verse 45. Pharaoh gives Joseph a new Egyptian name. I'm sure that blessed him, because these are pagan people. Hey, I'm going to change your name like they did Daniel. Instead of Joseph, he's going to call what a name. If you're looking for a monogram, this is going to be tough. Zephaniah Paneah. That's his new name. Which explains why they're calling him that when Joseph's brothers show back up. They're not calling him Joseph. They've changed his name. They changed his name, but he also gave him a wife named Asenath. She was the daughter of Potipharah, the priest of On. This priest, when I looked this up, this is like a big, these are very, very known as one of the more intelligent groups of people in Egypt at the time. And they worship the sun goddess. And so this is her father is the priest in this place, which is so interesting, is because now he's got this Egyptian wife, and he's one of the 12 tribes of Israel. And yet we see, once again, that God is bringing in, because they have these two children, Ephraim and Manasseh. Y'all heard of them because of just things that they inherit land, but these are Joseph's sons, Ephraim and Manasseh. And though they're giving them Hebrew names, so you wonder if she didn't take his faith, or at least, that's as much as we know, is their name Hebrew name. That's what we know. But they have these two children. And so let's see, verse 46, Joseph was 30 years old when he began serving in the court of Pharaoh. And when Joseph left Pharaoh's presence, he inspected the entire land of Egypt. He was ready to go. He's looking at the whole land. He is taking off. He's not going back to say, you know what, I'm going to find those stinking brothers. I'm going to, he's not going back to do all the things. But he continues to go forward. As predicted, for 7 years, the land produced bumper crops. During those years, Joseph gathered all the crops grown in Egypt and stored the grain from the surrounding fields in the cities. He piled up huge amounts of grain like sand on the seashore. And finally, he stopped keeping records because there was too much to measure. During this time, before the first of the famine years, so I want you to realize this is before the famine, this is before the brothers come back to find wheat, right? He's just in the land. As far as he knows, this is his life. He's going to live here. He's going to be he's waiting for the famine. He's storing this up. He is in the land of Egypt and has no reason to believe anything. He doesn't know the story that's coming. We don't know the story that's coming. 2 sons were born to Joseph and his wife, Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, the priest of On. Joseph named his older one Manasseh, for he said, God has made me forget my troubles. It means forget. So we have to remember some things and we have to forget others. We want to remember the cup. We want to remember the one who gave us the cup, who says, remember me. And we need to forget those things that are behind, that keep us from moving forward. Those are the things. And he's saying, you know what, this little fellow, he's in the land of my grief. And you know what, you are good. You are a good gift. You've made me forget, you have made me forget some of the evil that's done. There was y'all know this story very well, very, very well. Let's say there's a girl, her name is Lucy. And let's say that she has a boyfriend and his name is Joe. And Lucy loves Joe so much. And Lucy does everything, but Joe just disregards her. And at the end, Joe is gone. And Lucy mourns. She can't eat, she can't sleep, she won't go out with anyone else. Lucy is forlorn. And all of a sudden, this other guy comes around, and his name is Bruce. And all of a sudden, Bruce walks in, and you hear some lady in the back say, you know what? She's going to forget she ever knew the name Joe. What am I saying? There's something that's going to come that is going to overtake the grief. And it's going to make us forget some of the things that have been because of the good that came. This is our story. It is that in this life there is suffering, but there is something so much greater. And it is to live in the passion and the love, to be received the love of Christ. And to say he has suffered for us, and he is saying, I have you right where I need you. Come to me. That's our invitation that he is asking us to do. So he names this first one Manasseh. God made me forget my troubles and everyone else in my father's family. Is that a funny phrase? Y'all listen to it again. Verse 51. Joseph named his older son Manasseh, for he said, God has made me forget all my troubles and everyone in my father's family. It's like, okay, I've been thinking about this father's family for a long time. Their rejection continues to hurt me. In this land of grief, this little fellow has been a real gift to me. You've made me forget some of what has been done with this family because I have a family. You've given these things. Everyone in my father's family. So Joseph has his second son, Ephraim, and for he says, God has made me fruitful. Where? He made him fruitful in the land of his grief. And that we can be fruitful if we will hold on to those things, even in grief. It is not because God has forsaken us. It may absolutely be for the blessing that will come to others through our suffering, just as it did for Joseph, and just as it did for Jesus, and just as I believe he will do for us. And we look at others and we know we've seen their suffering and how it has encouraged us to endure. That Christ uses those things. So at the end, that's exactly what happens. We know that there was a famine, and all the people from all around, and that is going to bring his brothers. So I want you to look at your sheet for just a second. On the top of page 2, it says number 3. Many benefited from the suffering of Joseph and Jesus. Let's not interpret sufferings and trials as only the discipline of God. Maybe it is the greatness of God in us. The suffering that we go through is often the greatness because they're linked. It is the endurance, the finding Christ, and to say, you know what? I don't have everything I want. Life has not gone like I thought. Things have gone that I can't get back. But Lord, you are with me. And the treasure of you has made me forget some of that. And I want to press forward, not to live in this life for what I can have that looks like everything else. But that I can live in this life knowing Jesus and making him known, remembering him and what he's done for us. I want us to look on the top of page 3, if you don't mind. The quote is in here because of the remembering. You've made me forget some of the things behind. We need to forget some things, don't we? Yeah, we do. And how do we do that? When we forget them and then we wake up the next morning, we remember them again. But that we continue to say, God, my life is in your hands. C.S. Lewis wrote it, and it's at the top of page 3, The Great Divorce. Hell is a place where no one forgets anything, remembering every slight, cruel exchange of words, every wrong. That's hell. You just can't, you never get over any of it. And Christ has come that we can overcome these things, and that we can say, we must remember, Lord, what you have done. You suffered for me, and you are here with me, accomplishing what only you can do. So that we would remember Jesus, remember Jesus. And our light afflictions are nothing compared to the glory that is coming to us. There is nothing that compares to the treasure of seeing and knowing Jesus. And for right now, if you could just have a mental picture that we can't see him right now, but if Jesus were holding his hands out and said, will you put your life here? You know, we're just like, yeah, but what will you do? But the truth is, God can do what he's going to do with your permission or not. It is our giving up that we find our life. It's like, my life is in your hands. And we look and we see these nail scars in his hands and think, oh yeah, I remember now. I remember that you love me. And when we remember that he loves us, it's so much easier to say, Lord, I will endure with your strength because my life is in your hands. I will remember you. Okay, so I want us, if you will, I have some questions here at the bottom, and I want anyone to answer this. Julie, do you have oh good, you're so good. Thank you. I want to know if you're willing to share, has anyone